Hello everyone, welcome to Immigration Talk on Indus TV. My name is Karthika Gupta. Today we have with us attorney Poonam Bhuchar.
Hi Karthika.
Hi Poonam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Poonam Bhuchar. I run a small corporate immigration firm in Princeton, New Jersey. We represent a lot of Fortune 500 clients. I'm also of counsel to Schaefer and Lakin, in which we have access to 45 other attorneys that deal with corporate law, mergers and acquisitions, real estate law, employment law, anything that our clients may need. Thank you for having me on the show.
So Poonam, I have been reading and going through this personally for some time that the people on H4 and L2 have had long extension delays, both for extensions of their visas and their EADs. Can you shed some light on that delays? Why are those delays happening?
Yes, Karthika, you're absolutely right. The delays have been mainly since 2019 because the Trump administration implemented an additional requirement of needing biometrics for dependents. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of it was to make sure, according to them, that the dependents were the correct people to be in the country. Okay. In addition to this, if we add COVID-19 and the fact that the application support centers have been shut down and they're being reopened now, these are some of the things that have caused delays. Also, as you're aware, in October and November and December, there was a surge of green cards that were available and opened up. So there was a huge amount of EADs that were filed. And as we can see in the court case that was filed in federal court in Seattle, Washington, that there is a theory that the delays were done on purpose for H4 and L2 EADs because adjustment of status applications were still moving. But one of the good things that we've seen on Monday with the court case that was filed by John Wasden and Ayler and I think a couple of other people is that USCIS has said now that they will suspend biometrics after May 17th. But before everybody stops running to their biometric appointments, we still don't know whether that means it stopped for the old applications or new applications. So what I would say to everybody right now, until we hear further from USCIS, they need to continue to go to their biometrics appointments. And I guess we are all hoping that this will definitely speed things up a little more because, as you know, right now they're taking over 8-9 months to file these applications.
Yeah, so a current Forbes article, which was published a few days back, said that there are around 123,000 pending applications as of now across US. And the average processing time for those applications is anywhere between 11 to 14 months. And those number of applications are growing every day. They are not reducing. And people are not receiving biometric appointments for like 6 months down the line.
Yeah.
So it's actually exceptionally increasing the delays.
Right, and you know, one of the things that has come out of those delays is that we see a lot of people suffer extreme hardship from this. People have gone from being 2-income families to being a 1-income family, and now people are losing their jobs because employers can't wait for employees to get their EADs renewed. So people are losing financially. A lot of people have mortgages they need to pay. We had a case in our office where, and these are the things you don't think of when you hear about the EAD delays. We had a case in our office that we were able to expedite, in which there was a couple whose wife couldn't renew her EAD on time, and because of it, the employer was trying to hold on to the job, but she had 2 children for special needs, and her income was solely being used for those special needs kids. So these delays have had huge impacts on people's families.
It must have been very tough, losing a job, losing an income.
Absolutely.
And losing independence, financial independence, especially when you got that independence after so long. That rule just came in 2015. It was not a very old rule. Finally, spouses got a chance to work, chance to be independent, chance to get some financial stability. And then losing jobs is really, really hard for all of them.
Especially in the pandemic.
Yes, I totally agree. So there is no chance of a premium processing on these H4 extensions or EAD extensions?
As of now, no. They did say that they would have it. We haven't heard anything further on it, and as of today, the answer is no.
No, not at all, no chance. That's not a good news either. So are these delays affecting the OPT, the F1 students, or it's just for the dependents as of now?
So no, they're affecting the F1 OPT. The good thing is, though, before F1 OPT students used to have to finish their 12 months within 14 months of their program ending. USCIS has just allowed some flexibility for people that filed applications between October 1st and October 1st, 2020 and May 1st, 2021. They're now saying that you have to finish your 12-month OPT starts from the date that your EAD was approved, which means that OPTs won't lose the time frame that they're allowed to work here because of USCIS
delays. I know. That's hard on a student as well.
Absolutely.
Very hard on a student.
Especially those who need it to
support themselves. We were talking about you expedited a case for a couple who had special needs kids. What is the process of those expedition cases? Is it done by a lawyer? Can people do it themselves? How did that entire process work?
So the truth is, I'm going to be biased. I'm going to say you need a lawyer, right, to frame it.
Yes.
But in theory, anybody can do it if they want to. But obviously, if you go to a lawyer, they know the nuances and the kinds of things that you need to put in there. And the burden of proof to expedite an application is on the applicant. It can be for severe financial loss. It can be for humanitarian reasons. It could be because USCIS has a compelling reason to give you an EAD, which is probably very rare in today's circumstances. But, we work with candidates all the time to see whether it's worth doing, to provide the paperwork and the documentation. And sometimes the procedure can be very tedious. We may have to do it a couple of times. We may have to call multiple times and follow up. Sometimes it gets rejected, and then we might try again after 30 days. So I really do think that given the nuances in the expediting process, it is best to go through an attorney and discuss with an attorney if it's even worth filing.
Can the company where that person is working and is about to get laid off because they don't have an EAD anymore provide some documents which can help?
They can, but again, it boils down to what are that person's particular circumstances, why they need the EAD so desperately. And the other thing we have to remember, EAD is attached to the dependent.
Right.
It's not the employer's need.
Yes.
With the H4.
Yes.
It's different than the H1, right? When you're asking for something to be expedited.
Okay. So that doesn't make things any more easy.
No. And under the current circumstances, I'm sure there are several thousands of applications that have been asked to be expedited.
Right.
So I think it needs to be formulated in a very precise manner.
So Poonam, with all these delays happening, the H4s are not getting extended on time, H1s are. People are putting their travel plans on hold. Now with things opening up and people getting vaccinated, they would want to travel. Can a person with a pending H4 extension application travel out of US?
Okay, so that's a great question because we get that a lot. And I think people need to understand that there is a distinction between a H4 extension and a change of status from, say, F1 to H4.
Okay.
When there's a change of status application, if you leave the United States, then you have abandoned that application.
Okay.
The issue with the H4 extension is that you can travel, but if you travel, you want to make sure that your visa is still valid in your passport so that you can re-enter the country. If you can't re-enter the country, then you're going to have to go for stamping. And we know what the situation right now is in India. The councils are not going to be operating in order to get those stamps as efficiently as you may need them to be done. So what we have said across the board to all the companies that we represent, when a candidate is in doubt, they should reach out to us and ask us whether they should travel or not, because it depends on individual circumstances. But overall, just because you have a H4 extension pending does not mean you can't travel. You just have to make sure you're going to enter back.
Re-entry is a big question here.
Absolutely.
If you have a valid visa stamped and it's not expired, then it makes more sense.
Yeah, the other thing is we were hearing, and it may not be as relevant now, the other thing is we were hearing that people who had traveled outside while their H4s were pending, if they had EAD applications and they weren't making the biometrics appointments,
yes,
then their EADs were being abandoned and denied. I haven't seen a lot of that, and I'm hoping with the biometrics requirement being gone that would be less of an issue now.
So, as you said, travel, but talk to your attorney first. Make sure you can safely re-enter USA. But there are certain cases, in fact, a lot of cases these days, where the H4s are expired. The extensions have not been approved yet. The I-94 is no longer valid. What is the scenario then? Are they in status? Are they out of status? Do they leave the country? Can they stay? If they can stay, for how long? These questions trouble the entire household, not just one person.
Absolutely. It creates a lot of uncertainty, and so do the delays. But as long as the application was filed on time before the I-94 expired, that people whose H4s have expired but have filed an extension on time are in status and can stay until that case has been adjudicated.
So there is no time limit of like 180 days or 120 days or something like that?
Stay until it has been adjudicated.
Okay, so that's a relief. They don't have to leave the country and be on. Okay, that's wonderful to know. So Poonam, let's move on to a slightly different topic, but kind of related. I wanted to bring some questions up about the green card process, because now the dates are current for a lot of people, and some EAD questions, the adjustment of status part of green card.
Sure.
So if we can talk about that, it will help a lot of our viewers.
Absolutely.
So the first question which I want to check with you is, once an employee filed for I-485 and got an EAD card, can they switch employers, move on to a new job? Is that possible?
That's the million-dollar question that every client wants to know. So once your 485 has been pending for 180 days, the AC21 rule does allow you to change employers in a same or similar position.
Okay.
And again, we can't go into the depth of what that means in this show, but basically consult your attorneys. They will look at your perm applications and they will assess whether where you want to move is in the same or similar position. And it will allow you, and provided you've met the 180-day criteria, you are allowed to move employers and they are allowed to continue the 485 application under that. But again, as with anything, every particular individual has their nuances. Please consult your attorneys before you automatically switch.
Okay, that sounds good. And 180 days is the minimum in that?
180 days, 180 days, it says from the time that you file. Some attorneys will say 180 days from the minute the FedEx gets there. I take a more conservative approach and say 180 days from when it's receipted.
So Poonam, a question on the same topic, and a lot of people are struggling with that question these days. I have filed my green card in EB2. EB3 date is current now. My priority date is current in EB3. Can I downgrade? Do I need to file all the paperwork again? Can you shed some light on that for us?
Sure, Karthika. We did this a lot for people back in October, November, and December. We were downgrading applications from EB2 to EB3. And it is possible to do and still maintain your EB2 application as well. You do have to file a new I-140 and you do have to have that approved. And some cases may be eligible for premium processing and some may not be. But again, with that, I think it's a good option to discuss with an attorney to see how close you are to the EB2 priority date becoming current and if it is worth you downgrading, because we also have to remember that back in October, November, and December, so many people downgraded to EB3 that I would imagine that there's going to come a time when EB3 gets immensely backlogged and EB2 may move. So I think it's like a chess game, right?
Right.
Which one to do first.
Which piece to move right now.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I think you can file it. There's no downside to it outside of paying the application fees
yes.
and do it, and then you can always later upgrade the petition if you need to. So it's absolutely possible, but please consult with an attorney before you do so.
And a law firm like yours can help people make that decision, right?
Yeah, I mean, we take the whole case and we'll analyze it and tell you truthfully whether you should or shouldn't.
Okay, and that should put a lot of people at ease if they can downgrade and get a green card sooner, because the waits have been really, really long over the last few years.
Right. And I think it depends where they fall in those priority dates.
Poonam, that was a great conversation. A lot of positive things. I think people will be a little at ease after listening to your inputs on these topics. But we still have a couple of questions from the audience which they would like to check with you. If you could answer those questions, it will be really great.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
So Poonam, here is the first question from our audience.
Hi, my name is Supriya and I had a question regarding my I-148 application. So my application is pending and I have my EAD card. I also have an approved H-1B, but I'm not sure which one I should use to work and travel on. If you could answer the question, please. Thank you.
So, great question. It's a question that we get asked in the office very commonly. In our office, though, we definitely ask people to maintain their H-1Bs while their adjustment of status applications are pending. They do have the option of, switching over to the EADs and using the advanced parole to travel. So they're not interchangeable. If you travel on the H-1B, then you would typically continue to work on the H-1B.
Okay.
If you travel on the advanced parole, there is an exception that if you travel on the advanced parole and you enter the country and you're still working for the same employer, you can continue to work for that employer while you've entered as a parolee until the validity of that H-1B. And then the employer can extend it and you would go back into H-1B status. We in the office, though, tell everybody to maintain your H-1Bs while your adjustment of status applications are pending. And the reason for this is because, there is no guarantee. If something happens and your adjustment of status application gets denied for some reason, then at least you have the H-1B to fall back that can still be extended because you still have an approved I-140, and you can continue on that for a while, depending on why the adjustment of status application was denied. I do think, again, this is a case-by-case scenario, looking at somebody's circumstances, why they are traveling on advanced parole or why they are switching to EADs. But in certain circumstances, people have to remember that if you switch to an EAD, you may not be able to switch back to an H-1B. So again, I've given a very generic answer because it is a case-by-case basis as to what people's needs are.
But a safer option, if you have an H-1, maintain that H-1.
I am a big fan of maintaining your non-immigrant status for as long as you can. The other thing that people fail to remember is that if you use your advanced parole and come in on parolee status, there is a benefit. It's called the 245K.
Okay.
That if you enter on a H-1B, you still can avail of if you've ever worked unauthorized for up to 180 days, some part of it may be forgiven, whereas if you enter as a parolee, it will not be forgiven. So there are some benefits that people need to be aware of why they should keep their H-1B status. Unfortunately, a lot of people are, and I understand that people have waited 10, 15, 20 years to get their green cards, may not be happy where they're working and may get a better job offer and want to switch, but you need to see what the dynamics of switching are. Maybe switch in another way. But
so you have to weigh the pros and cons of both.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there is no one answer fits all.
One size never fits all.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry.
So I hope that answered Supriya's question. We have another question coming up from an audience, and I would like you to answer that question as well.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Ankur. My question is regarding the driving license renewal for H4 spouses. My H1 renewal has been processed and approved, and my spouse's H4 is still pending approval. What options do we have for the driving license renewal for my spouse while we are waiting for the H4 extension to be processed, please?
Ankur, I think I'm going to give you an even more frustrating answer because there is no straight answer. It really just depends which jurisdiction, which state you live in. And, you know, we've played games in the office where we've asked people to go to the same NBC office, and one day they'll get turned away, the next day they'll get turned away, but the third day there might be somebody else at the desk that will issue it to them. It depends who's there. The other interesting fact right now, at least in New Jersey, is we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out. In New Jersey, they're issuing driver's license to undocumented citizens, which means that if it's become more lenient, then I'm hoping that for H4 spouses, it won't be that difficult because the documentation requirement will be less. But I think we'll have to see how it plays out. And unfortunately, it does depend
On the DMV.
Yeah, it depends on the NBC, DMV, and which state you're in.
So they lose their work and then they are on the verge of losing their driving licenses. So things are not getting easy for them on any front. So is there any particular documentation they can take to support themselves in the MBC that this is a pending application or something which might help?
Well, we as attorneys can write letters. There are other things that we have that we can ask them to take with them. And again, sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends jurisdiction to jurisdiction.
Okay.
But I am hoping with the biometrics not being needed anymore after May 17th, and obviously we're waiting for USCIS to come out with the criteria, but I'm hoping things will move faster.
Yep, I'm hoping so too.
Yes, so kudos to everyone that filed this case.
Yes.
Because it's definitely helping people.
Yeah, it's not a few people, it's like 120,000 plus people, and numbers keep getting up every day.
Absolutely, I suspect it's higher than that, but yes, hopefully things will get better for people.
That's it for today's show. Thank you so much, Poonam, for being here, being part of such an important conversation which is affecting so many lives these days. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you, Karthika, for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Please feel free to reach out to Poonam for any legal consultations. Her email address is poonam@bhucharlaw.com. Signing off from today's show, this is Karthika Gupta. Thank you.